Hey there guys, Kieran here with another episode of Kieran's Movie Space, and this is my spoiler-free review of The Spy Who Dumped Me. The Spy Who Dumped Me is directed by Susanna Fogel and stars Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon as two best friends, Audrey and Morgan, who are thrown into the world of espionage when Audrey discovers that her piece of crap ex-boyfriend is actually a spy. This is a film that I wasn't particularly interested in seeing just because I didn't really like the look of the trailer and there wasn't anything about it that looked unique or special, but obviously as someone who likes to review movies and talk about them on this podcast, I figured I should probably give The Spy Who Dumped Me a chance, and I pretty much got exactly what I was expecting. This isn't a disaster, it's not the worst film of all time or anything like that, and there are certain aspects, which I'll talk about in a minute, that I actually enjoyed quite a bit. But overall, The Spy Who Dumped Me is kind of a mess, and as a comedy, I'd say that this movie pretty much fails to accomplish much of anything. As for what I liked about The Spy Who Dumped Me, I will say that I enjoyed Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon as a duo. I thought they actually bounced off of each other really well, and you believed that these two characters had been best friends for years. I know that a lot of people don't really like Kate McKinnon much, and I get why. She does kind of play the same character in every movie, but I liked her a lot in this one, and I'd say that her kind of exaggerated crazy performance worked for the story and for this character. Another thing that I think worked well, surprisingly well actually, was the action. Usually when you go to see one of these action comedies, the comedy takes center stage and the action kind of sits in the background, but some of the action in here was surprisingly well executed, and there were one or two moments where I was actually really impressed with some of the action. It kind of feels like someone took an action scene out of Mission Impossible Fallout and just plonked it in this movie. I know that doesn't really sound good, but it worked surprisingly well for this movie. And unfortunately, those are pretty much the only things I liked about this movie, which means it's time to start talking about some of the stuff that I didn't enjoy. And my biggest issue with The Spy Who Dumped Me was the humour. For a comedy, this film felt like it was just trying way too hard, and they were throwing jokes out every second of this film, and I think there were maybe only one or two that actually landed, and the rest just felt a little bit random, and I don't even remember the last time I went to see a comedy where a cinema full of people just sat in silence for the whole film, except like I said, for only one or two jokes. So yeah, the comedy aspect of this action comedy didn't really work, and another thing that I think could have used a bit more work was the actual story, because this film was just way too predictable. Everything that happened, I think I guessed watching the trailer, and I'm not even kidding. If you go and watch the trailer and write a list of what you think will happen, I can guarantee that you'll guess at least 90% of the story. Just because, like I said, there's nothing original or surprising about this movie whatsoever. From the beginning, you know who the villain's gonna be, and it was like playing bingo watching the film, just crossing out all of the stuff that I knew would happen walking into the cinema. I'd also say that this film felt a little bit too long, and I get that the runtime doesn't really matter to a film. You can have a 3-hour film that's really good and you could say it's too short, and you could have an hour-long film that's terrible and you could say it's too long. I think it all comes down to quality, but either way, if you get to the point where during the film you're looking at your watch and you're wondering how long is left, the film is probably a bit too long, and I think the third act of The Spy Who Dumped Me just dragged on a little bit too long, especially when the whole film was depending on this big twist, which everyone pretty much guessed from the beginning. Overall, guys, The Spy Who Dumped Me is a film that didn't fully understand what it wanted to be, and it seemed to get stuck between giving us an action movie, a surprisingly good action movie, and giving us a comedy movie, and because of that, neither of the two elements fully worked. There were definitely some good action scenes, and there were a few standout jokes, but at the end of the day, this isn't a film that I would recommend watching. It's nothing you haven't seen a million times before, and frankly, I do think there are better films in the cinema right now for you to spend your hard-earned cash on. To give The Spy Who Dumped Me a score out of 10, I'm going to go with a 3. I do think it's possible to have a good time with this one. I'd recommend getting it if it ever came on TV or if it was on like DVD quite cheap. But if you do go see this in the cinema, I don't think you'll be walking out talking about how funny it was or how good it was, and you probably won't think about it ever again once you've left that cinema. So that's my review of The Spy Who Dumped Me. If you've seen the film, let me know what you thought in the comment section below, and if you're listening on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so you never miss another one of my reviews. I've got 1 or 2 more reviews coming up this week, so stay tuned, but for now that's it for this episode. I'll see you next time.